Welcome to TCG TV. This is Brody Tennant with Tennant Commercial Group. We're going to be doing a weekly podcast vlog series every week. So today I have Jesse Mail with Sebastian Lane Consulting, and we're going to be going over how do I expand right now. So, Jesse, give us a little information about yourself and what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am an outsourced sales manager. Sebastian Lane Consulting is an outsourced sales management firm. And we specialize with companies that have 10 or less salespeople and help them set up a proven, repeatable sales process for 1/6 the cost of an inside sales manager.
Jesse, so what are you kind of seeing some of the biggest obstacles right now? Obviously, given COVID is throwing everybody's business in all different directions and it's affecting people different ways, but what are some of the biggest obstacles you're seeing?
Yeah, I think the biggest obstacle is fear. So the biggest obstacle is the fear of offending people by reaching out and asking for their business. It's the fear of being insensitive to another person. It's the fear that you could be talking to somebody who either doesn't have a job right now or may not have their job in another month. So these are all really serious, they're not unfounded fears, right? So they're definitely, they're definitely relevant. And that's one of the biggest obstacles I see right now is it's so tough when things are unclear, like a confused mind says no, generally speaking. So, if you're not sure, generally speaking, people say no and hold steady. So, the big obstacle right now for companies is saying yes to themselves and embracing the fact that maybe everything isn't certain, but there's still great opportunities for them. And then the second piece that goes along with that is then getting their customers or prospects to say yes and move them off of no. So those are the biggest obstacles I see right now. It's just the general uncertainty and the fear that naturally comes with that.
When you can't meet people physically right now, what are you doing to physically sell when you can't be physically in front of somebody and actually have that transaction like you normally would?
Right. And yeah, great point. And it's definitely a barrier. We're not doing things the way we used to do things. And I think one of the toughest pieces of that is the in-person camaraderie that you don't get a chance to build. So we're all trying to jump through the screen right now to build rapport, to be likable, to get our messages across and really build the rapport that most of us have an easier time doing in person and just getting a sense of people. So it really is a true barrier. And the best way to sell right now is really to lean into your network, because your network, you've already built rapport. There's inherent trust. And really it's interesting, Brody, because this isn't something that is only relevant now. This would work better if we did this all the time, pre-COVID, post-COVID, the idea is we should always be leaning into that. And the reason why is because business owners and people in general make decisions based on referrals. So they take advice from people they trust. And that is how they start the decision-making process. It's how they vet people. It's how they make their final decisions. Is really, 83%. 83%. That's a big number of the decisions start with, searches for professional services start with a referral. That's just where people want to start. It gets you through the vetting it gets you past that stage of, is this person competent? Because if somebody's referring them to you, they're at least competent. What I've found is I've gotten closer to my network through social distancing than I ever did, in person when we were doing our commutes, when we were, there's so many other things that factor in. And right now, all those things have been moved to the side. So the social distancing has actually made it easier to connect with, to talk with people that you already have relationships with. It's like we're all finding time for each other right now. So Brody, let me turn the question back to you. So what are the biggest obstacles you're seeing in your industry, in the commercial real estate industry right now?
Great question, because obviously there's a lot of uncertainty as well, and we work with all business owners and investors, so it depends on which side you're looking at. A lot of our investors, there's a lot of unclarity of what type of businesses are going to be staying in business and which ones are going to be growing and which ones are going to necessarily be the best tenants moving forward. So on the investment side, it's really have to do your due diligence. You really want to know what are market rates. Like if rates go up or down, and obviously that's very volatile right now. So there's going to be opportunity, but also you want to make sure that you're doing your due diligence. So we really are asking for longer study periods on projects, and we're really just trying to think of, hey, are there other uses for some of these? Because I think the biggest industries going to be hit are going to be the restaurant spaces, obviously, and some of these larger office buildings. And I think there's a couple ways that some of our restaurant owners have been evolving with the time is they're doing a lot of carry out, takeout, to-go orders, and they're getting a smaller footprint, less tables, which limits their overhead and how much their operating expenses are. And then with these office spaces, like there's some that are just going to be reutilized. There's going to be larger spaces. People, instead of sitting 2 or 3 feet apart in the cubicles or however it's set up, people are moving apart and they're spacing out and they're getting work done from social distance, but they're taking out some of these walls and making these rooms a little bit larger, so you have some larger co-ab space. And I think that's just kind of something you're going to see is just different utilizations of buildings, and maybe some companies need smaller footprint. We're helping them with that and renegotiating leases or finding locations that maybe fit a little bit different business model, just because there's not as much of a need for square footage. So with the future uncertain, how are you getting people to move forward right now?
Great question. Yeah. So, really the key right now is, and it's interesting because again, it's one of those things that's universal. It hasn't changed, but salespeople often get a bad rap or people who are selling as, sleazy, selfish, pushy, whatever it happens to be. And really a great salesperson is none of those things. A great salesperson is somebody who takes you from the problem that you have to the solution, and they inform you and educate you along the way. So the best way to get somebody to move forward is to educate them about how moving forward gets them closer to their solution, right? So, an exercise I do with a lot of my clients is I walk them through, okay, who is your favorite teacher? Like, who's your favorite teacher in school? Okay, so what were some characteristics about them? And it basically breaks down to 3 things. 1, they were subject matter expert, right? There's somebody who knew more than you did, right? When you're in class with them. Mm-hmm. 2, they actually cared about you. They listened to, they learned about you. They listened to your questions, and they really used that to build the solutions, to questions that you had. And then the 3rd is they were engaging, right? They were interesting to be around. You liked them. Like not too many people's favorite teachers are the teachers who put them to sleep each day, right?
You gotta enjoy being or doing what you're doing,
Yeah, you gotta enjoy being with them, right? Yeah. So when you take those 3 things, just translate that to now your favorite salesperson that you've dealt with or your favorite vendor that you've worked with. Mm-hmm. Weren't they a subject matter expert that knew more about their particular, service than you did? Yeah. And aren't they people who cared more as much about you as a person as they did about your business? Yeah. Weren't they engaging? Didn't you enjoy working with them on a daily basis? Yeah, you did, right? So when you're looking to get people to move forward, the best way is always to educate them, because we talked about it before. A confused mind says no. So what takes care of confusion? What eliminates confusion? Certainty. Mm-hmm. So you provide them with the education that they need to understand the things that are certain and provide clarity towards their solution that they're trying to get to. And that's how you get people to take the step from unsure, not willing to say yes, to yes, I understand now, let's move forward.
And now you're providing a huge value that they probably didn't even know that they were getting, and it's now doesn't seem like a sale. Absolutely. It seems like you are providing.
Absolutely. And you absolutely are. And the truth is a lot of times the things that get somebody to move forward aren't even things that are in your realm. You know what I mean? Like, Brody, if you helped a prospect with an issue they were having that wasn't commercial real estate related, wouldn't you be just as satisfied with the end result?
Yeah.
And wouldn't you end up being the person who gets their commercial real estate business when the time is right?
Probably, yeah.
Absolutely. And yeah, not even probably. You're going to get the business. So that's something called relationship equity. And we all have this built in, well, I shouldn't say we all do, but most of us have a built in sense of what's there. You know what I mean? So one of the great ways to really build business for the future right now, especially if you're in an industry where you can't generate business on your own right now, due to circumstances literally outside of your control, you can still build those relationships and generate business for the future just by simply helping somebody with their biggest, most present problem right now.
It's time for our Show Me the Money segment. We're going to have a little financial segment on how should we be kind of adjusting our finances right now, kind of given the climate. Things are going to be different. You know, there's the PPP program going out. Loans are basically being shut down, and banks are finally starting to open loans back up, and PPP is active and going. So I want to introduce Craig Gajewski with First Citizens Bank. Give us a little more insight about what's going on with the commercial real estate lending market. So I have Craig Gajewski here with First Citizens Bank. Craig, give us a little bit of information about yourself. Tell us what you do.
So I'm a commercial banker with First Citizens, working primarily in Central Maryland. Work with companies to help them purchase real estate, finance their equipment needs, provide working capital, and then of course traditional banking services like deposit and treasury.
Cool. So right now, I think you and a lot of the banks out there are pretty busy, I'd assume, kind of in the last month or so.
Yes, definitely. The PPP program kept us very busy from the beginning of April, really until just about a week or two ago when we wrapped up that lending program. And then, now we're helping folks to navigate what the forgiveness of those loans is going to look like and making sure that they're using the funds properly and keeping documentation in order and that kind of thing.
Yeah, so expand on that a little bit. I mean, what exactly are you seeing in regards to the PPP? Obviously, it's forgiven to a certain period. I mean, what point do you know what that threshold is? The PPP, basically, you have to use that money for payroll. Do you know when that timeline is?
Yeah, so from the time the funds were received, folks had an 8-week time frame, and that was what the loan was supposed to support, primarily their payroll needs over an 8-week period. So from that point where they received the funds, they were supposed to start using the funds. Really, what we've learned is whether they actually used those specific funds, they can basically reimburse themselves for the 8 weeks worth of expenditures that they incurred right after the loan was awarded. So, if there was a holdup with getting the money into their account or anything like that, certainly funds can be transferred around to reimburse themselves. But at the end of the day, it was to cover that 8-week period, primarily for payroll, with a threshold of 75% of the loan or more needing to be put toward payroll. The rest could have been used for things like mortgage, rent, utilities, etc.
We were talking earlier about some of the business owners that are looking to take advantage of some of the opportunity out there. If there's people that are currently leasing their commercial space, looking to move into owning their commercial space and get financing that way. And that's different type of loan process. And some banks are just now starting to open back up as PPPs, basically. The applications for PPP are starting to slow down. How are you seeing First Citizens Bank process in regards to opening up back lending, and how should people be kind of having that conversation about getting lending for a building with their bank?
So for us, the demand for loans didn't go away completely between March, April, and thus far in May. It certainly, has been a bit diminished. There aren't as many people who are actively out there seeking space and looking to take on more space. But to your point, there are certainly bargains to be had for folks who maybe have a building for sale or an office condo or something. If they really need access to cash, they may be willing to negotiate a lower sales price. I can tell you that valuations are now being impacted. So real estate that was worth $1 million a couple of months ago may be worth, 850 or 900 today. And that's going to be the short-term impact of the pandemic. And, it's always going to be about supply and demand. So I think that the demand for people looking to take on more space, may be impacted in the short term. There's a lot of folks working from home, and maybe business owners are learning, I don't need as large a footprint as I had before, so they may look to take on less space, or to your point, instead of leasing a huge space, maybe they'd rather own a smaller one. So everyone has their own decisions that they need to make for their business. But with regard to the relationship with your bank, it's always good to have that existing. But if you don't, you want to find a good banker that is able to give you personalized attention, that's not overwhelmed with hundreds of clients to the point where they can't get back to you within a reasonable amount of time. And that's one thing I like about working for a moderately sized bank, is that, I am able to be responsive to my clients and get back to them within a couple of hours instead of a couple of days or a couple of weeks.
Are you seeing the process or the bank's appetite starting to grow for wanting to lend to those projects? And I know for a while, a lot of the banks were just completely cutting off lending outside of PPP.
Yeah, so I think, as I said before, we still had some demand, speaking specifically to First Citizens, through the pandemic situation so far. And the process is largely the same. We're collecting the same information. Our turnaround time has been the same. We are asking quick questions specific to how COVID-19 is impacting each business, and talking to the owner about, what does your day-to-day look like today, and how does that differ from, January or February of this year, and what do you envision your new normal? Hate to use that cliched term, but what does the new normal look like for your business, and how are you adapting to the way that you're going to need to operate in the foreseeable future? It's certainly tough to predict the future, but most business owners are looking a quarter, 2-3 quarters, maybe even a full year into the future. So, seeing how they're modifying and maybe ratcheting back their expectations for 2020 is helpful, to at least say, hey, we were having a great year through the middle of Q1. We've scaled back our expectations, and now we feel like we're still going to have a decent year. It's just not going to be quite as good as what we had hoped.
What are you seeing in regards to the actual commercial lending market? I mean, where do you obviously things are changing a lot, but what are you seeing, and what are you seeing potentially going forward?
I think with specifically speaking to our bank, we are definitely one of the more conservative lenders out there. We'll work with all industries. Of course, like most banks, we love medical, healthcare, dental, veterinary. The services that those folks provide are always going to be needed, but there are a lot of other essential services that business and residential consumers need, like HVAC, plumbing, electrical. The list goes on. And so those folks are just as critical to, the day-to-day infrastructure of our communities. And we're still going to lend to those folks. We're just going to be a little bit more diligent about, looking at their numbers and asking about projections, and how they've been impacted and how they've been able to overcome some of the recent challenges. So I think that you're still going to see most banks having an ability to lend to the vast majority of business owners. There's just going to be a little bit more due diligence, and maybe just a bit more of a conservative approach.
Mm-hmm. And where are you kind of seeing rates right now? I know that obviously there's been a lot of change in just the economic footprint over the last couple of months, but where are you seeing that in commercial rates? Again, given there's going to be a wide variety depending on the credit of the borrower and the situation that they're in. But as a whole, I mean, what do you see now, and what do you see going future?
Well, speaking from my own experience, First Citizens is known for having low interest rates. It's not necessarily how we present ourselves in the market, but it's something we are known for. Going back to the comment I made, we kind of go after that top quartile of businesses. So the top 25%, whatever the industry is. And that's based on, comparative metrics. We look at their income statement, balance sheet, do our own analysis. But we like to reward business owners for managing their companies in a prudent fashion. And so one of the ways we reward them is with low interest rates. We're we're seeing fixed rates right now in the low to mid 3% range. And that could be anywhere from a 5 to a 15-year fixed rate on owner-occupied commercial real estate. For non-owner occupied, the rates are going to be slightly higher. There's a bit more risk involved, but if you have longer term leases with your tenants, we're still very competitive.
With opportunities, I mean, if they do come up, a lot of times they're selling quick and fast. You need to be able to move quickly. I mean, what are you guys seeing in regards to on the bank side? You need somebody that can answer you quickly and that can kind of underwrite a deal with you and say, hey, is this possible? Is it not? What are you guys seeing on your end about the timeframes on that?
Great question. And that's one reason I think it's always best to work with a local person that knows the local marketplace, even if they may be working with underwriters that are in other areas. It's my job as a lender to advocate for my borrower and do my best to get the job done. So at First Citizens, we always commit to getting back to people within 72 hours with basically a yes or no decision, or if we need more information. But assuming we have a completed financial package and all the necessary statements, we do get back to folks within 3 business days.
Well, that's huge, because that can make or break a deal right there. If you don't have your stuff in order, and that's even more of a point that you want to have your package together and basically have some sort of pre-approval beforehand, understanding of what does our financial status look like, and then as opportunities come up, you're able to move quickly on some of those as they do come up.
Right, for sure.
All right, Craig, that was very informative. I want to thank you for coming on, and we will be in touch soon. Thank you for coming on.
Okay, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Have a good one.
You too.
So I know you mentioned using your network earlier. Elaborate, how are you using your network right now to shift your business?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So, I mean, really, my network is really the driving force behind what I do. It's my driving force behind not only finding clients for, for myself, but it's really the key to unlocking the solutions to people's problems, right? So my network has been of value, not just to me, but to all of my clients, to the rest of my network. The more we lean into our networks right now, the better results we're going to have. I mean, there's no replacing I have a good friend who's a business consultant. Her name's Vola Adina, and she's from MBA Growth Partners. And one thing that she brought up to me recently was the diversity of decision making. So the more people you have involved in these decisions you're making or your thought processes, just the better decisions that you end up with. You know what I mean? Because you get this huge diversity of decision making. And so that's where I really see the network being a place where you can really lean into and expand, because you've already got the network built and you're able to provide solutions from 20 other service providers that aren't you.
Yeah.
So it lessens your responsibility to know everything, which is nice. And then it also just provides your customers with such better service.
Yeah, I can definitely see that in just our business alone. I guess expand a little more, like, how are you leveraging them? What are you doing to grow your network? Because you can leverage people in different ways, and you can really expand that network right now. So how are you seeing that on your end?
Yeah, I mean, a great way right now is to speak. So if you can get organize a panel, organize a panel of people who are like-minded, who are trying to reach the same customers you're trying to reach, and come together, because one of the best things you can do is pull together all of your resources, right? So Brody, I know you. Other people within my network don't know you yet. So doesn't it benefit all of us for me to get my network in front of you and to get you in front of my network? Of course it does. It's the fastest way to expand. It's the 6 degrees of, it's a Kevin Bacon thing. You know what I mean? It's, we're not that far apart. So the best thing you can do to really leverage your network right now is to truly join forces. So do collaborative work. So if you're doing something, like us here today, you could have done all of this without me. So cat's out of the bag. I'm not that necessary. But
I wouldn't take
together,
that. I wouldn't go there with that.
But together, we're able to provide more and to provide multiple perspectives and multiple resources and introduce each other to different people. So I think that's really the best way to leverage it right now.
Yeah, and you're seeing different things on your end. You have different people that need different things than what my clients need or what my network needs. So it's filling voids however possible. I feel like the larger your net is, the more you have the ability to service people in multiple different ways. And I love the saying that your network is your net worth.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Build your network as large and as wide as you possibly can. Is something that I'm a strong believer in, and it comes tenfold if you're servicing people at a large mass and having a large net of network.
And Brody, has it or has it not carried you through the past 2 months, having your network?
That's something actually we dove in really heavily on our end was since we can't go out and service as many of these deals going on right now. I think it's kind of on a holding pattern right now, but we're really hitting our relationships with people, and that's something that we've just made a schedule that, hey, we have a system of how we just make sure we stay in touch with these people, and it's further grown our relationships that we already have and gain us a bunch of other relationships that as everything starts to opportunities come up and as things start to open back up, hopefully it's something where we have a lot deeper and wider relationships with people that we can do business with.
Yeah, absolutely. And think of it this way: if you're trying to cover a square mile of territory, you know what I mean? You set up guards along the way. You set up sentry points, right? So like you space yourself out so you can see and hear everything that's going on. And if you're just working by yourself and you're not using your network to be listening for opportunities for your company or for yourself, then you're just missing out. Like you're leaving half the field, completely untended.
Yeah. So what's the most valuable thing you think COVID has taught you?
The most valuable thing that COVID has taught me is the value of my network. Not just the value of looking to other people for solutions to other people's problems. Because to do everything on your own, especially, I think I can't remember if I mentioned before or not, but I've got 2 small children. So I've got an almost 5-year-old and a 2-year-old. And so the idea that I could take care of my customers by myself right now, and to the best of my abilities it's nonsensical. But with my network, I've got people who are helping me fill every gap I have as a company right now. And so I'm going to carry that with me. I mean, we're stronger in number than we are by ourselves. So that's really the one thing that I've really learned. Another caveat real quick, just before I forget, is that we'll call it 1A, is that the value of going back to the basics. So the basics of what you do, the fundamentals of your business, especially from a sales perspective, nothing has changed other than we have to hone in and be great at the fundamentals of what you do on the sales side, knowing what you sell, knowing why it matters to your customer, and being able to explain that to them. That's something that gets lost sometimes.
What's your value proposition? What is your value proposition? Yeah,
exactly. What's your unique value proposition that sets you apart from everybody else? And now's the time when you really need it. And
especially when you're growing your network. If you're growing your network right now, and you don't know how you bring value, whether it's whatever facet it is, you want to have a relationship. Someone understands this is exactly what we do, and here's how we can help you. Now is more important than ever to have that conversation.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. All right, Jesse, that was awesome. Thank you again for coming on. That was some insightful stuff. Hopefully everybody else got some tidbits to take away from that. But thank everybody else for watching. Don't forget to smash the like button below, share, comment what other topics you want us to hit next week. See you soon. Everybody, stay safe.